Our story begins around 39,000 years ago. A Neanderthal huddled in the back of a seaside cave in Gibraltar, safe from the hyenas, lions, and leopards that may have prowled just outside. Under the flickering light of a campfire, he or she used a stone tool to carefully etch what looks like a grid or a hashtag onto a natural platform of bedrock. This is where our story begins, ladies and gentlemen of the ancient alternative view. It is important to know at this specific time that three major cultures were roaming our earth. The Châtelperronian period gained its name from the site of La Grotte de Fils in Châtelperron-Allier in France. It refers to one of 5 stone tool industries that have been identified for the Upper Paleolithic in Europe between the 43,000 and 18,000 BC mark. Although it is generally assigned as the earliest of the 5 industries, the Châtelperronian is now recognised as being fairly equal with and perhaps even a little later than the Aurignacian period. Although both are associated with the Middle Paleolithic to the Upper Paleolithic transitions between 43,000 and 31,000 BC. A little after the very end of that transition, the last Neanderthals in Europe died out. This was during the Gravettian period. They were in serious trouble from around 35,000 BC onwards. So, the enigmatic Gravettian culture, an Upper Paleolithic, late Old Stone Age culture. This succeeded the Aurignacian to dominate much of Europe from around 29,000 BC. In fact, the Gravettian apparently replaced the entire Aurignacian. The Aurignacian genetic signature disappeared from a broad sweep of Europe once the Gravettian groups had arrived. However, Aurignacian culture did resurface around 15,000 years later. Although they carried distinct genetic signatures, the Gravettians and Aurignacians were descended from the same ancient founder population, which I find fascinating, ladies and gentlemen of the ancient alternative view. The Gravettian were characterised by a stone tool industry with small pointed blades used for big game hunting, such as bison, bull, horse, reindeer, mammoth. It is divided into 2 regional groups, the Western Gravettian, mostly known for cave sites in France, and the Eastern Gravettian for sites for mammoth hunters on the plains of Central Europe and Russia. The Gravettian people were famous for many Venus figurines they created. Why did they create the Venus figurines? What were they depicting? They're widely distributed across all of Europe and into Siberia again, which is fascinating, ladies and gentlemen. This was an Asiatic expression of the Gravettian. Another famous prehistoric discovery of this period are the hand stencils in Cosca Cave close to Marseille. Standing around 1.82 meters tall, which is 6 feet, the Gravettian men of Europe were by far the tallest humans of prehistoric era. Even today, Europe contains some of the tallest men in the world. Along with Europeans' descendants, former colonies around the world. Findings by researchers have suggested that this impressive stature may be a genetic legacy of the Gravettian people. Thought you might like that, Dave. Bubcat. Their specialisation in hunting big game meat would have left them with surplus of high quality proteins. A low population density of this period created environmental conditions which led to the selection of exceptionally tall males. The large height of the Gravettian men is believed to be linked in part to a group of genes called the Y haplogroup. The Gravettians of Italy. They are renowned above all for its figurines and burials. Buried people often have archaeologically preserved appliques, their caps being decorated above all. There were also found some minor body decorations and sometimes imaginative and complicated necklaces. They're unknown to the north of Italy, however. The Alps separated Italy from the colder part of Europe, which influenced the existence and evolution of Italian Gravettians. The climate here is substantially less harsh than that more northern parts of Europe. The Gravettian of Italy existed 35,000 years ago. Now, do you notice any hallmark on this picture that you might have seen in your historical searches? Well, I noticed this, and I thought it looked rather like the Egyptian third eye. Now, the Egyptians were well-renowned star engineers. I think even mainstreamists believe that as well. Now, I was wondering whether there were any other hallmarks from the Gravettians that have been passed down to different cultures. I think you'll be interested to know, Ancient Alternative View. It gets a lot more interesting from here. The Gravettian of Moravia, the Pavlovian. Moravia, northern Austria, and southern Poland, around 33,500 years ago. The era of the great European cultures of the northern type hunters. The Pavlovian is a noteworthy variant of the Gravettian culture. Its centre was located in Moravia, and the culture reached northern Austria and southern Poland. Its name is derived from Pavlov, a village on a slope of the Pavlov Hills. Now, if we have a little bit of a look at that, this is what it looked like, ladies and gentlemen. Now, can you notice in the background here what these look like? Now, to me, they look a little bit like pyramids. Now, a water source, which all of our ancients needed, but if you notice the Gravettians, if you study them, they're always on an ancient water source, as is ancient Egypt, as is many ancient cultures. They needed it. This could have been for industry as well, but this isn't the pyramids at Egypt. This is the Pavlovian pyramid, ladies and gentlemen, of the Ancient Alternative View. Now, are there any other significant hallmarks that the Gravettians could have possibly given? Well, the Apis bull, they seem to draw absolutely everywhere, which if you watched my Ancient Egypt episode, then you would have seen the same thing. Now, this is a representation of the Milky Way. Now, there are other hallmarks like the Venus statues. Let's have a look at those. Now, the Venus statues, we've talked about these today. They've come from the Gravettians. The Gravettians brought them into play. Now, look how many of them there are around our world. These are in Greece, these examples here. Do you see? They're everywhere. They're in Malta. Remember where and who were in Malta at the beginning of the show? Well, these cultures didn't just get them out of thin air. They were passed, ladies and gentlemen, from the Gravettians. The Gravettians went to such lengths to keep the lozenge shape over time from the Neanderthal culture. Why did they do that, ladies and gentlemen? It obviously meant something to this set of specific engineers. Now, these engineers, to me, are star alignment engineers, ladies and gentlemen. You can find this lozenge pattern at Newgrange, as you could also find the Gravettians who emigrated from Wales over England, also from Ireland. So they've come all over mainland Europe, showing us where these lozenges are, and kept thousands of them in the form of Venus statues also. Now, the Venus statues, ladies and gentlemen, are not depicting naked women. I do apologise. They are depicting the planet Venus, the star alignment engineers. Now, you've got the lozenge everywhere in our ancient world, South America. Now, people think, ladies and gentlemen, that Göbekli Tepe is the end, at the start of our journey. The lozenge, ladies and gentlemen, was left there by the Gravettians, in my humble opinion. And this star alignment, absolute megalithic masterpiece from the engineers, was buried over so that we could find the connective hallmarks back to the Gravettians, ladies and gentlemen, of the ancient alternative view. A museum replica of what a Gravettian would have looked like, ladies and gentlemen. And on studying this image, I noticed one or two different things. Now, if you have a little bit of a look down here, you will notice that there is a disc. Don't know whether you've ever seen them before, and also a stone circle. Now, I don't know about you, but I personally think that they could be representative, ladies and gentlemen. The discs could well be Chinese. And the stone circles, of course, represented all around our world. Now, if we go back to the Chinese having these discs, now burials took place with the Gravettians having these discs, and the Chinese have replicated them so many different times that it led me to believe that they must have got there. Now, is there any evidence of such an act happening? Well, the Gravettian burials, ladies and gentlemen, they very much buried themselves with their valuables, their discs and so on. And I believe, and this is my own opinion, so I'm welcoming you to tell me that I'm wrong, but working backwards, I feel that the last remaining and surviving Gravettians were in fact the Tarim mummies in China, buried very much the same way, very much well looked after, not your typical Chinese either, which stands to reason. I know there's a big debate on that. So, with what started, ladies and gentlemen, of the ancient alternative view 39,000 years ago, we've managed to come forward all the way to the Tarim mummies. And we've looked at the Gravettians and all their hallmarks, the lozenges and the Venuses that they passed through, the hallmarks that stand out a mile in ancient Egypt that the Gravettians could well be. Ladies and gentlemen, the star alignment engineers, I still know that they were given the information because we've looked at today where the journey started at, ladies and gentlemen, 39,000 years ago. And we started with a Neanderthal that carved onto a rock, ladies and gentlemen, a hashtag diamond. And we've followed that lozenge all the way back to where I think the Gravettians passed knowledge of the star alignment all over our world. And that knowledge was passed in the form of Venuses and lozenges and the same hallmarks that we are finding all over our ancient world. Just takes us to open our mind and have a little bit of an alternative view, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to first of all thank you for watching. Thank you to all new subscribers. I'd like to introduce you now to my research team. First of all, Andrew at Ancient History Criticisms. We study the physical evidence with reference to the bevel blocks and the nubs all over the world with regards to all different ancient hallmarks, and it's an honour to research with you, my great friend. And also another part of our research team, another great friend of mine. I wouldn't have been able to get to the bottom of the Gravettian conundrum without this man. His knowledge is fantastic, and it's an honour to research with him as part of our research team. And bear with me 1 minute, ladies and gentlemen. Then you've also got Ziggy Dan. He's part of our research team. This guy's forgotten more than most people know, so absolute pleasure, Ziggy, and I'll no doubt speak to you very shortly. Thanks very much for all you do, guys. It's a pleasure researching with you, to be quite honest. And the purpose of this is obviously we've got the researchers like Chuck over at TF Apps. This guy's PhD researcher. We've got the honour as a research team to be able to speak to Chuck. He's fantastic at what he does, and thanks very much for all your help. We really appreciate it. Obviously, another good friend of mine. I wouldn't have started the channel unless it was for this man. Absolutely fantastic guy. Michael over at the Lost History channel. Light Up the Dark, go and show him your support. It's nice to see all the ancient channels communicating with each other. And I think this year is going to be completely different. I think Chuck alluded to it prior. We're very, very lucky to have a good team, along with Chuck. Of course, Dr. Charles, probably one of the most eccentric yet clever people I've ever met. So I say that a lot when it comes to the ancient channels. Fantastic work, guys. It's a pleasure to do work with you. It really is. Now, there's one person, again, that's doing great work. And I'd like you all to get over there. I'd like to do something with Dave over at Bubcat and get my research team involved, where we all talk about what we've done and try and link together our research, get ourselves round a table, so to speak. I'd like to hear your views on whether you'd like to hear that. It's finally nice to get all the ancient channels working together in harmony. And thanks again for everyone for watching today. It's a pleasure to introduce you to the research team. And thank you very much indeed for watching.